this kind of attitude is game changing and is really the basis for any kind of success.
Amazing. So it sounds like there's so many different components that you would go in and look at, knowing that it wasn't time bound, but you were building a team that had an open view of, all right, it isn't only about skill set. It is also about looking at the whole potential of a person and everything about their life. It is also about me and my potential and everything about my life.
Yeah.
And integrating as a team and knowing the mission, the vision, the values of the organization, and what that contributes to the community and to the world. So it's a whole integrative process within the person, within the organization, within the city, within the planet. Like, it just goes in and out. It's like a breathing organism.
Yes.
All the way around.
Yeah, right.
What led you to that? Because I would not say that that's the most common view. It's not never happening, but I have not run into many who view an organization as a living organism in that type of a way. What led you to that? How did you get to this space in your own perspective?
Having seen what it does to organizations and people if you don't do it that way, having experienced this kind of threat and fear-based and command and control-based systems, and having met so many people in those organizations who have been reduced to a particle, a fragment of who they are, and it's something that creates suffering for individuals. It creates stress. Up to stress-induced illnesses that go rampant in these kind of organizations. And you get the kind of behavior that I just alluded to, dysfunctional behavior, where people do things, good people do bad things all of a sudden. You know, non-compliance behavior with laws and regulations, doing all kinds of things in order to make up for something that is expected of them, which is then executed in a way that isn't based in enabling people, but putting pressure on them. And then people try to find ways in order to keep their job and do what is expected of them. But then they move sometimes into areas which are illegitimate or worst case illegal, and you get these kind of behaviors that we've seen over the last few years and decades in many companies. Might it be something like Dieselgate? Might it be some kind of collusion? Might it be antitrust behavior in terms of agreeing pricings across competitive companies? All these kind of things are typical symptoms of people having been pressured in organizations, and instead of opening the spaces for creativity and innovation, they were reduced to something and not giving the opportunity to do what they could do, right? Yeah. So and this is something that I've experienced many times, and it's the individual and the organizational suffering that actually then I for some reason was always quite sensitive to. And it drove me to the conclusion there needs to be a different approach. There needs to be a more humane and human-centric approach to leading that. And I started trying out that in my early leadership functions, and found that it worked better than anything else, and it was authentic to myself. And then I developed my own approach over time, and grew with the growing mandates that I got.
Can you talk to us about your approach?
I'm sorry?
Can you talk to us about your own approach? I believe it's rolled into a new flow that we've seen called the Heartful Leadership. Is it the one and the same, or is it a separate approach?
No, it's basically that, and it's basically something that has three tiers, I would say, 3 levels, and it always starts with oneself. So the first part of that is recognizing your own suffering, being aware of your own suffering and your own humanity, of your own faults, of your own traumas, and starting to work on that. We all have our own traumas and our own journeys that have brought us to who we are today. And being aware of what am I carrying around that is, or that has set me off in a certain direction or a trajectory, is probably the first step. And the second step then is starting to manage these basic functionalities, body, mind, heart, and soul, in order to in order to progress, to become a better version of myself. So this is the first, and I think probably the most important step. If you want to change something, then you need to start with yourself. The second step then is, if you have the awareness for your own humanity, then obviously you have to develop an awareness for other people's humanity. You're no better than anyone else. So other people's suffering and vulnerability is just the same. And you, from that point of view, the moment that you dive into that process of managing your basic functionalities, or your basic faculties, the better word, you start to develop compassion, empathy for what other people are going through. So based on a better way of managing your own and leading your own self, you can then progress into leading others with questions like how to connect and build trusting environments, how to create connection and belonging, and based on that, there comes then a third level where you actually take the self-management leadership and the capability of leading others, and then apply it to those positive changes that you want to see in the world. So it's these 3 things: self-management, leadership, leading others, and leading change and transformation, that constitutes my approach and that has evolved over time, and that I would say is now something that I try to pass on to others.
It's, when I looked through it, you kindly shared it so we could take a look through it, and there are so many components, because in that me part, the reviewing of the me, not only do you see growth opportunities, but you also have the opportunity to really embrace your strengths, which oftentimes we can overlook in that self-deprecation process that many of us tend to do, because that negative brain bias, because we all have that so often, and we can talk ourselves down. But when we get to know ourselves, not only are we finding our growth opportunities, but we also have that opportunity to find our strengths and what we bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
And so from what you were saying previously, where you're building that team and you're finding, okay, when I know the strengths of everyone on my team, then I can align everyone into the place where I empower them to draw out their strengths. And as they get to know even more about their strengths, then we can move them around. It isn't like you set them and that's the only place they are. An organization is a moving thing. And so there's growth opportunity. As the person grows, the organization grows and people can move around. And so as we've talked prior to this, there's always that mobility within the we as the me grows. And so that strategy that you're discussing, the me to the we, when we get into that community part of it, whether it's an organization or outside, then you can move around as you grow stronger and get to know yourself more. And then the community gets stronger through that as you integrate.
Right.
And so that's a beautiful part of this model is it's ever growing, ever changing. As you grow, we grow. As we grow, then we contribute more to the planet or the whole. And the evolution of that is infinite.